Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jenny Parks, and I'm the VP of Policy and Research at the Midwestern Higher Education Compact, otherwise known as MHEC. Today, we are joined by a number of folks who are going to help you learn about becoming certified in Creative Commons licensing or taking a different path and doing a shorter micro-credential in that same area. I wanted to remind everyone that we will be recording this webinar and that all of the slides will be available to you afterwards. Today, we are joined by Jennryn Wetzler, Director of Learning and Training at Creative Commons, Molly Ledermann, Faculty Librarian, Washtenaw Community College in Michigan, and Craig Finlay, OER and STEM Librarian at the University of Nebraska, Omaha. There will be a survey at the end, so please do let us know by completing it how we did today and how we can do better next time. So I won't delay anymore. You want to hear all about the great work that these folks are doing. I'm going to turn it over to Jennryn. Oh, I should say one more thing. If you have questions, please put them in the questions part, not the chat. I will be monitoring those and making sure that we answer those questions for you. So Jennryn.
Thank you so much. It's always such a pleasure to be here and to get to work with our MHEC colleagues. So special thanks to Jenny and to Mary. So I have the pleasure of giving you a very quick overview of the CC certificate program before teeing up our wonderful alumni here to tell you a little bit more about what it's like going through the courses and also what you can do with the knowledge afterward. So if you are unfamiliar with Creative Commons and our certificate program, we are a global nonprofit organization that works to increase access to knowledge and culture in the public interest. So we're best known for our CC licenses and public domain tools, but we also have this wonderful training program called the CC Certificate, which is a way to train people in open licensing. So there are courses for academic librarians, educators, and cultural heritage professionals. The courses are either 10 weeks online or 1 week in person as a boot camp. And they cover everything from a copyright 101 to limitations and exceptions to copyright, such as fair use or fair dealing, the public domain, as well as CC licenses. So how to CC license your own content, how to rework others' open license content and reuse others' open license content. And more than that, how to best engage in our different sets of commons of shared knowledge and culture. So how to advocate for open sharing of knowledge and culture as well. So we are, sorry if you can hear the loud music behind me. We're delighted to offer these trainings 3 times a year online. So we offer them every January, June, and September. Our January courses just wrapped up, but our next courses start June 10th. So we hope that some of you will join us there. And so far we have over 1,700 graduates from 65 countries who have been CC certified. And that includes alumni in all 51 states in the US, as well as DC. And people take the certificate training courses for a number of different reasons. We have people who are working on zero textbook cost degree programs that want to make sure they're applying licenses in the correct way. We have people who are trying to deliver on grants with open license requirements. And we have other folks who are just curious about a legal alternative to all rights reserved traditional copyright. So there are a number of different reasons to take our courses. We are always delighted to see what people do with them afterwards. We encourage people to adapt our resources, which are obviously all open licensed and available online. So we've had translations of our work. We've had people create new courses, workshops, LibGuides, etc., audio only recordings and more. So we really encourage people to make use of the open licensing education as in whatever way best suits them. So I wanted to just really quickly share my slides here, and we will make these available afterwards, of course. All right. So the main thing I want you to come away from this webinar with is knowing how to apply the MHEC discount. So if you are interested in taking one of our 10-week online courses, you can simply go to our registration link, and I will put the link in the chat. And you can type in MEC 15 as the promo when you're in the checkout, and that should apply 15% off to your course. So please do consider taking advantage of this wonderful discount. We hope to engage all of you in open licensing expertise and education in the coming months, and we're always available for any questions that folks might have. We also lead a number of different trainings, smaller scale trainings and workshops, depending on what institutions need. So we are always available for follow-up and for questions. Just email certificates@creativecommons.org. Okay, I'm going to actually see if I can stop sharing for a second and stop talking. And I would love to just introduce our first alumnus or alumna. So Molly Ledermann is a faculty librarian at Washtenaw Community College in Ann Arbor, Michigan. She's led the college's OER initiative since 2018, assisting 10 cohorts of faculty through OER textbook adoption, resulting in an addition of 50 new courses using OER textbooks and the college's first Z degree pathway. Molly is a member of the Michigan OER Network Steering Committee, a past chair of the Michigan Academic Library Association OER Interest Group, and is currently serving on the ACRL Community and Junior College Library Section OER Committee. Molly, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jennryn. I know that last one's quite a mouthful. So I'm Molly Ledermann, and I took the Creative Commons certification course last fall, so just in fall of 2023, a recent alum or grad from that. And I was able to take the course as part of a sabbatical project when I was on sabbatical for full semester. And so I was able to pair taking the course with doing research at my institution about how students interact with OER textbooks and traditional textbooks, and also their perceptions of OER textbooks and traditional textbooks. And that was just like a really nice pairing for me to kind of do that research while getting this course and kind of have it all come full circle. And I had been really wanting to take the course for quite some time and was happy to finally jump at the opportunity to do so. And I can tell you that from day one of enrolling in the course, I knew that it was going to be incredibly helpful to me in my work in open education. And first of all, the biggest benefit to start is that it forced me to create time and space to do the coursework, which means creating time and space to create specific relevant materials that will directly help me in my work at my institution. So there's nothing like an accountability partner to get work that maybe you've been wanting to do for quite some time done. And I found that to be incredibly valuable. And one of the materials that I created was, as Jennryn was mentioning, a research guide for my institution. And I made it not just, it's a lot about Creative Commons, but I made it for a very specific purpose. So in our institution, as we mentioned, faculty who are creating new OER or embracing new OER projects for their course have to go through a cohort. And it's led by myself as a librarian and one of our instructional designers to provide wraparound support so that faculty don't lose steam or hit a wall or just not know who to ask for to get their questions answered. And in my role, I provide that big picture context of why do we do OER? What do we care about? What impact is it going to have on our students? Research and discovery materials, as well as helping faculty navigate Creative Commons licenses and copyright and attributions and everything like that. And up until I took the course, I had slides for each session and some documents, and then there'd be follow-up emails and conversations. And I had really been wanting to create a research guide, to create, a one-stop shop that I could teach from during the session and then have that be familiar to faculty, and they could go back there and it could be agile and responsive and easy to update without having to send new slides and documents and things like that. And so that was incredibly helpful to me. And on top of that, then after the course, the instructional designer and I went ahead and redesigned the I'll say the cohort program to spend a little bit more time on Creative Commons than we had been. Because in taking the course, I realized that there were some nuances specific to teaching faculty that would be worth more discussion, like fair use and other copyright exceptions and how that affects Creative Commons and the material that they're using. And also just spend more time thinking creatively about the material and the content that they're using. So that was really helpful to me. And I think that is a big takeaway for me, that the course content wasn't just interesting, but it was meaningful and directly applicable in my work right away. And another benefit of the course for me was that it really deepened my understanding of Creative Commons and, you know, the movement that the institution is supporting worldwide. And as you can tell from my introduction, I've been doing OER for quite some time. I came into the course thinking, oh, I've got a pretty strong foundation here. And so not only was it an accountability partner for me, but also like a healthy dose of intellectual humility. And I think, and so I want to emphasize that I think it's really helpful. And just even from the discussion boards during my course section, I could tell that this course was really helpful to people both coming into it brand new and people who had been doing it for quite some time. So, and I think that really added to our robust discussions in the course, with people bringing so much from different perspectives and different, you know, the work that they're doing in open education. And for example, at my institution, you know, we've already done a lot of courses, and a lot of the general education courses where that general out of the box material is pretty easily adaptable or readily available. And so the projects that I'm now helping faculty with are a lot more mixing and matching, or creating and mixing and matching, and are getting, you know, more nuanced and difficult in navigating those licenses. And so the timing for me was just right in taking this course. And I was happy to discover that there were ways in which I have more creative solutions for faculty. And also there were places where I was being too restrictive in my advice, and that there are, you know, faculty could be doing more with the content than I had been perhaps advising them in the past. So, so that was hugely helpful to me in my relationship with faculty there. I also just want to emphasize that I really appreciate, as we've been mentioning, that sharing out option. I took a lot from the things that other people were doing in the course. I thought that was really helpful to be able to see what kinds of things are they making, what kinds of things have students who took this in the past have done, because the whole point is to keep sharing it and sharing it on. And one of the things that I did, in addition to that research guide I mentioned, was to take some of the content that I made for the course and do a professional development session for faculty when I came back from sabbatical during our winter in-service. And I wanted to do it not just to share, well, one, to share all of the great new information I learned about Creative Commons and have a really in-depth conversation with faculty about copyright and Creative Commons in the classroom. But I also wanted to raise awareness that someone on our campus had gotten this certification, because I do think it sends a really specific message that, you know, someone took the time to go through this professional development to become a resource on our campus. And I would hoped that it would generate ongoing support for our OER efforts, but also open some new conversations. And I was really pleased that it was well attended. Faculty had a ton of questions. And one department, even after the fact, invited me to come back to their first department meeting of the semester, so that we could just really spend some time talking through some specific things they'd been struggling with as a department, kind of just starting to move into OER, and some like kind of division or discipline specific scenarios they were wondering about. And so it opened up new conversations and new networks and new interest in OER there. And that's even, like I said, even on a campus where we've been doing it for quite some time. And two, one thing that Jennryn also mentioned is that advocacy aspect. And I wanted to highlight that as well, that as a community college librarian, you know, in an academic library, a lot of my work in OER advocacy is also continually dispelling those myths around OER, like they're not as high quality, you know, and all those other myths that we hear again and again, and help advocate for faculty and students who want to be able to use OER. And this course totally helped me fill my advocacy toolbox with new ideas and resources, and kind of refresh some content and ideas and get new things to share. And I also want to say, just as I was mentioning, you know, having that credential, having that little badge at the bottom of your email lends a little bit of like street cred, a little credibility to as a signifier when you're communicating with people across campus and talking to stakeholders that, hey, this is somebody who took the time to be a campus resource, and now our campus has a direct contact for faculty, and we know where to send people when they have questions, and can help faculty navigate those questions and issues as they're trying to incorporate OER materials into their classrooms. So I think that continual messaging out that, hey, we know something about this, we can support a really robust and effective OER program at our campus is really helpful in communicating out. So overall, I would say I found this course to be incredibly helpful and impactful. It expanded my network of people that I can go to with questions or, share out with and collaborate with. It definitely deepened my knowledge of and understanding of Creative Commons and the amazing work that the organization is doing worldwide, and helped me increase my advocacy, beyond my institution, where I think sometimes we get a little bit institution focused. So it was helpful for me to be more aware of things going on too in museums and schools and everywhere else. And I think just being able to come out of that course with so much content that was relevant and specific to my institution that I just have ready to pull from anytime I need it. I can tell you in the months since I finished, I've used the content I created again and again and again. So it's so relevant and specific, and I found it to be incredibly worth my time.
Thank you so much. That just made me smile times a million. That was really very kind. Okay, so I want to now turn it over to Craig Finlay. I'll introduce him, and then we are happy to take anyone's questions either as they come up or at the end of this. So please do keep those in mind and post them in the Q&A option. So
There was already one, Jennryn.
Great.
So it came up right as you were transitioning to Molly, so I didn't want to interrupt Molly, but someone said, hey, I've already signed up for this course for one of the upcoming sessions. Might I still be able to access the discount?
Absolutely. Yeah, if you can email certificates@creativecommons.org, we can get you sorted and we can get the discount applied.
Thank you. All right.
Great question. Okay, so I'm delighted to introduce Craig Finlay, who is an OER and STEM librarian at the University of Nebraska at Omaha and is a 2021 graduate of the CC certificate program. He came to OER work by way of scholarly communications and a brief stopover in library management. He's published articles and book chapters on a variety of topics, most recently including discussions of digital library programming amid the loneliness epidemic, and a book chapter on using OER work to make the case for excellence in teaching, forthcoming later this year. He's also the editor of The Complete Guide to Institutional Repositories with ALA 2020, and his first publication, an article about parking and circulation statistics, published while he was still in grad school, has apparently been lost from the internet along with the rest of the Student Library Journal. So if anyone's come across a copy, he'd very much like to have it for old time's sake. Craig, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Jennryn. Actually, that chapter, real quick, on OER and tenure is out. Like the whole book's out. It was through Doors 3, and it's a whole book of case studies on OER and tenure. I'll put the link to our chapter up there. So basically, that was super interesting series of conversations that we had with a bunch of unit heads and department heads and tenure committee chairs at UNO about using OER work in tenure. And what we kind of came out of that with was this idea that it presents a very powerful opportunity for faculty to demonstrate excellence teaching in their tenure path, because most commonly that could go up and there's 3 areas. There's research, teaching, and service, and they got to have outstanding or excellent in at least one, and then sort of like above average in the others. And but a common misconception about attaining an excellence in teaching assessment in a tenure package is that it's not enough to just teach X class X number of times and then have good student evaluations. You need to demonstrate innovation and development and assessment. And doing OER conversions and adoptions in your course presents a great opportunity to do that. One of the people we were interviewing described it as almost a hack to get that excellence in teaching assessment. And so we kind of in the article talk about how this is people should consider this idea from an advocacy perspective, right? Sort of another sort of advocacy point that we can use that demonstrates a potential like immediate tangible benefit to the faculty themselves beyond student success and monetary impact, and even the pedagogical freedom angle that we've all used. That yeah, this can help you get tenure. So check it out. Yeah, so I was actually, as Molly was going, I was going through my list of things I was going to say because I don't just want to repeat what she was saying, and I just crossed most of it out because I was like, yep, and yep, right. But one thing that I will reiterate is I also thought going into the certificate program that I had a pretty good idea of Creative Commons, right? And I did compared to the average person. You know, I had run a faculty kind of stipend funded workshop for a couple of years. It's like a summer-long workshop in urban educational resources. I have been on as an OER librarian. It was actually my first semester here as an OER librarian. And I had been a fan of Creative Commons for a long time. I think I made my entire Flickr profile Creative Commons, like when that became an option on Flickr to apply that license, which is still super cool. I could just, sometimes I go and just search my Flickr name and I'm just on a blog somewhere and I'm like, oh, I remember that photo. And then, yeah, having gone through it, it's night and day. I mean, and I think I'm probably one of the blurbs on the CC website still. It's the best professional development experience I've ever had. Hands down. It's night and day compared to what I thought I knew to what I came out of it knowing, particularly in terms of the stickier things like remixing and collections and things like that, right? As well as the ins and outs of the non-commercial attribute, right? There's a bunch of stuff that people who even have worked with Creative Commons for a long time can get hung up on. They can get kind of sticky. And it never felt like this huge mountain of work to climb. Like, it's so well designed and it was fun. I mean, I created things that I still use. I created a PowerPoint on Creative Commons that I later turned into like a fold over stapled handout booklet that I hand to people. And one thing that I did want to point out is that, yeah, so having gone through it, and so if you're a librarian at a university that doesn't have a dedicated copyright librarian, right? And you start to help faculty with questions about, you know, X, Y, or Z, it doesn't really take long for like word to get around that there is somebody who has helped one of your colleagues with this question. They'll mention it. And yeah, with Creative Commons, having gone through the certificate in my first semester here, and I also took advantage of the MEC discount, so thank you, MEC. Yeah, I started, you know, just help. I helped a couple of faculty randomly with some Creative Commons questions, and then very soon I'm getting emails from faculty I've never met. I was talking to my coworker, and they helped you with, and you help them with this or that issue, right? And so here's one thing that I am interested in, and so yeah, just kind of like doing that. Eventually, word gets around, and yeah, you get faculty who are interested in licensing their own work, or you know, use cases, use for education, etc. And yeah, people just start to contact you because they've had a conversation with a coworker, and you're kind of like the go-to person who, yeah, you can help me kind of bang my head like against this copyright issue, or with like author's rights or things like that. And so it's been super useful in that case as well, because yeah, a lot of those questions that I get, you know, they dive into things like adapting and remixing and these kind of stickier areas sometimes of Creative Commons that can trip people up. So yeah, I mean, for the return on investment there, and for just the kind of one semester's worth of work, and the format was super fun too. You know, it's because you use a lot of discussion interaction, and you're really talking to your fellow kind of cohort members, so you do kind of have that sense of, you know, that you're joining a community of practice here. You're seeing what other people are doing, it never felt like, and I didn't even, you know, have to do it during time off. I mean, this was during my first semester here, right? Which is always, you know, you don't know the university yet, and you don't know the stakeholders, and you're trying to do that scan, and you're trying to introduce yourself and meet people and remember your coworkers' names when you see them in the hallway. And, you know, that's probably the semester where people have the least free time. And I didn't think it was this onerous kind of like time demand. It was like, it's so kind as far as a certificate program. And I can't say enough good things about it. Yeah, so here at UNO, it's also been super helpful in that. So I manage a grants program on campus. We have an affordable content grants program that funds either conversion to being fully OER or courses that meet our low cost tag, which is we do the less than $40 thing. And yeah, having gone through the certificate program and really be able to discuss at length and help faculty with these issues of licensing and adoption, and again, particularly remixing and collections and things like that, has made the process so much more smooth. I think since I started here, like managing that grants program, I think we're at like 40 or something like that. And our faculty are evidently doing something right. Last year, I was on a research project. I can put a link to that in the chat as well if you would like to read it. And we were so happy to see this result. You know, because you know, there have been a few studies that found like a nil result, or but we looked at kind of the community as a whole, right? So like all of the no-cost courses, and then all of the it compared to the whole of the rest, and we found that, you know, courses that had gone through this sort of conversion had particularly for first generation college students and part-time students, significantly decreased 8% fewer DFW rate because they have access to the materials immediately, and also just better overall grade performance. And that was also the case for sort of like the student body as a whole, but yeah, particularly magnified for these kind of traditionally underserved populations, which might have more financial barriers to cross or more time demands. It was so gratifying to see that, okay, yeah, like our faculty are doing something right. And I honestly think a lot of that has been due in part to the fact that, you know, when I'm helping faculty do these kind of conversions, you know, I can talk about the abilities of Creative Commons so much more deeply than I could when I was running like a faculty workshop each summer, but I didn't have a certification, and I just kind of, you know, I knew about about as much about Creative Commons as you would get from like a Wikipedia page or something like that. So I can't recommend it enough. It will pay dividends pretty much perpetually. And also it's been great too, because now that we're developing this kind of partnership microcredential, you know, I utilized a lot of what I loved about the Creative Commons certificate in designing this course as well. And that's all I have.
Yay, thank you. I know you added slides. I'm happy to share them, or if you want to.
Oh yeah, I don't have them open. I thought
Okay.
you would be on the same slideshow, and then you'd eventually kind of go through to it. So if you want me to talk about that now.
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
let me tee it up. Here we go. Okay, hopefully folks can see this. Yeah, just tell me when to click forward and I'll click.
Yeah, so, and you know, we recently started and you can go ahead and move forward. Yeah. So we recently completed a Creative Commons University of Nebraska at Omaha partnership for a microcredential. That wouldn't have happened if I had not done the certificate program, right? But it's sort of branded as NU Advanced. It's a bunch of microcredentials that really focus on like professional development, and they're geared towards working professionals or soon to be working professionals. The pilot program started in early 2023. I was actually part of the program pilot, and the course is just finishing up because it turns out it's a lot of work to develop a brand new course. That in and of itself has been such a valuable experience perspective-wise, because, you know, when you're working with faculty to do this, do like an OER conversion, adopt open educational resources, work with these kind of materials, when you're advocating, what you are proposing and talking to them about is a course redesign, right? Because you've got to take this whole new suite of materials. You're talking to faculty about the pedagogical freedom. You can do this sort of like backwards course design where you're starting with the learning outcome, and then week by week, you're assembling stuff and you're building a course that way. And so now, having even gone through just designing a micro-credential course that's not even a full semester long course. I mean, it's a 9-week micro-credential. I have so much more perspective and appreciation for the kind of work that I am talking to them about doing. And so that in and of itself has been super valuable. But yeah, so this is one of the standalone micro-credentials, some stacked to form larger pathways. But yeah, so it's kind of a heavily professional development oriented project. You can move forward. Yeah, so in the it's called Introduction to Open Educational Resources. So it's a 9-week micro-credential designed to include 45 hours worth of work. Right now, we're dry running it with a couple of staff members just to make sure everything is functioning as should. But the first cohort goes live on May 31st. And you can move forward. Yeah, so like I said, 9 weeks, 45 hours. So we created it in cooperation with Creative Commons. So there are 4 weeks of copyright content, copyright basics, public domain, and fair use. The specifics of Creative Commons licensing, licenses, how they work, history to today, all that good stuff. And of course, the CC microcredential, as will be the case here, like the actual content, the text and the slides and stuff, they're also Creative Commons licensed. And so I could have just grabbed them, and as long as I was doing proper attribution, would have been fine to use them. But I really wanted to partner with Creative Commons on this to really get their expertise in the course building process. And so thankfully, when I reached out to Jennryn, she was amenable to the idea and was endlessly patient in this very, very long process. And then also we had, and I'm terrible with names, who reviewed the language in the copyright and legal slides?
We had Yuan Xiao Shu.
Yeah. Who was also went through and just made sure that all of the legal language and everything was kind of correct and current. And so yeah, a full 4 weeks of this is devoted to copyright licensing, like I said, public domain, Creative Commons, fair use, because all of these things, they talk to each other in different ways, and none exist in a vacuum. And yeah, being able to work through Creative Commons with that and actually kind of like have Jennryn work with us through this, have Creative Commons review the content for these modules, made it really so much better. We also worked with our educational designers here, who are like professional education designers who specifically work with online education, and they were able to help with things like accessibility, clarity, learning objectives, videos, all that good stuff. It's run through Canvas. But other content aside from CC and copyright includes, so ecosystem of academic and scholarly publishing, OER and OA, both kind of history and current, advocacy, stakeholders, developing allies, funding, student success, accessibility, assessing peer programs, realistic goal settings. We kind of really, over the course of the 9 weeks, worked through all that stuff to build a foundation of kind of, here are the major areas that you're going to be working with if you're talking about doing OER work as a librarian or an educator, and then culminating in, and you can move forward, culminating in a creation of a mock kind of, or a real world initiative, if they're a current kind of working professional, with a plan for this kind of work with measurable goals and goal setting. And yeah, relies heavily on that sort of discussion and interaction component that I loved so much about the CUC microcredential. So much learning happens there, as opposed to simply sort of like you know, having students sort of like prove that you have learned this thing in X, Y, or Z way, right? Actually sort of like having that sort of interactivity and talking to your cohort mates was so valuable for me. And so we integrated it here as well. And then, yeah, with all that stuff, like I said, work within a professional instructional design team to adapt the content to an online format. Yeah, so it's 9 weeks. It's 45 total hours. And then, yeah, how it works is after we work through all of that kind of foundational knowledge, then, you know, we start looking at sort of identifying real world initiatives, peer initiatives, examining them for things like what stakeholders are they working with, what's their funding model, what are they producing, et cetera. And then using all that to then sort of describe yourself, you know, either a mock or a proposed or a real world initiative. So even if the person taking it isn't a current working librarian, they could still, you know, if they're a student, let's say in library school, or they're getting like their education degree, they can still say if this is the kind of work that they're applying for, you know, this is what I would like to do, and here are my short, intermediate, long-term goals. Here's how I'm marking them, right? Here's how I can assess assess them. So hopefully then for everybody, we'll kind of continue to pay those similar long-term benefits that I'm still enjoying from Creative Commons. And then one more, I think. Yeah, there's my email, sfinlay@unomaha.edu. If you have any questions about it, you can send me an email directly. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We were so delighted when Jenny and when Craig contacted us to find out if it was possible to collaborate on something new. And this is something that we would love to replicate. So if anybody listening to this would like to partner on something similar with Creative Commons, please do reach out to Jennryn at creativecommons.org, and I'll put my email address in the chat space. And I think,
yeah, and I'm sorry, I didn't give Jenny the credit that she should have had for this whole thing, because yeah, I had reached out through her because she was my contact person from having gone through the credential, and so she was also integral to this. I didn't mean to leave you out. I was just trying to work through a whole bunch of stuff in my head. Sorry, Jenny. But thank you, Jenny.
Thank you. Yes, that's a lot of what I do is professional matchmaking. I'm like, oh, I know someone doing this, someone doing that, and I don't know, maybe it'll work. So it really did. It worked out really well this time. I'm excited. So yeah, it is. It's really wonderful. So do we have any questions out there? Yes. With the 10-week Creative Commons course, how much time should we expect to spend on it each week?
that's a great question. I meant to address this in my initial comments. From what we've seen, based on participant surveys, people generally spend 6 to 10 hours of work per week on the online course. I will say we have a cheat sheet in case anybody's interested in some ways to maximize their time a little bit more efficiently and get through the course as easily as possible. We try to give people as much flexibility as we can, understanding that everybody's got a number of other commitments, full-time jobs and families and so on.
Mhm.
So we have wonderful facilitators around the world who will also flex into people's needs. So if they need an extension on a specific assignment deadline or otherwise, they as long as they're in communication with the facilitator, they're always granted that. But yeah, generally about 6 to 10 hours of work per week.
What I've heard from folks who've taken it is that it's very rigorous, but very engaging. So, you know, it's fun. It's a fun 6 to 10 hours and relates very, very actionably to everything you're probably already doing or aspire to do. So how about some more questions? Well, thank you all for being here. Those of you on screen and those of you off screen. It's so exciting to see all these new things bubble up and develop in the open education world. So thank you so much for your hard work. If you guys have more questions, we've provided all of the contact information in the chat, and they'll also be in the materials we send. Here's another one. How do we work on persuading my campus to adopt OER?
That's a great question. I'm going to actually defer to Molly and Craig first.
Molly, you
I'll
take
say, oh, go ahead. I'll say, on my campus, I think it's starting to pull together key stakeholders, right? Because I learned quite quickly that it has to come from faculty. So like as soon as you can get your first faculty on board, or faculty who are interested, and then they can speak to the impact that it had on their students and the impact that it had in their classrooms, that really helps. And then I think the other thing that really helps is gathering student stories. So as soon as we were starting to use OER on our campus, we really made an effort to like have a student panel at a faculty in service. We had pictures of students holding signs of how much they'd spent on textbooks every semester. The more that faculty are thinking about how does the cost of textbooks impact my students, that I think is a big agency for a change agent. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say, have a number of sort of advocacy approaches that you can rely on. And I have found that, it's making sort of like the purely altruistic kind of argument for things you're never going to get somebody saying like, I disagree, right? But it is useful if you can approach faculty with, and Molly's right, like this has to be a ally building exercise. You need people who are in your court, but if you can come with a concrete benefit that you are arguing that they will receive, because altruism's great, but people are also motivated by how is this going to benefit me? And so as I was talking about with that sort of the approach idea of using the excellence in teaching assessment, right? So who would be a good ally to talk to this about? Well, I mean, for that one, it's chairs and unit heads also, because they have a vested interest in seeing their faculty complete the tenure process. And so if you can make the case that this is going to help them get excellence in teaching assessment, that's going to be something that they're going to listen to. Also, obviously, faculty who want to get that assessment too. But there's other people to reach out to then. I mean, most campuses have in that case, a workshop for faculty who are about to go for tenure. That's super common, right? They would probably be happy if you can present this well to have you include content for them. Almost every campus has a Center for Excellence in Development and Teaching, right? So if you can go to that stakeholder and say, here are the ways that, you can use OER to do backwards course design, to innovate classes, to allow for greater pedagogical freedom. They're like, that sounds like great content. And I've never met a Center for Excellence in Teaching that wasn't happy to get more programming content, because they put on a lot of workshops for professional development credits, right? There are stakeholders in campus, and if you can approach them not as a salesperson, but as somebody who wants to help them on a given project, any stakeholder on any campus is going to have a number of different initiatives. These initiatives are things that they have already invested money in, they've already invested labor power in, and the success of these initiatives helps them. So if you can find a ready project that you can do together that dovetails with what they're doing already, that helps with that existing investment of labor power and money, then, and you can see that initial project, it can even be like super low-hanging fruit. That's going to create a positive association in the minds of the stakeholder with you and what you're doing. And so as opposed to then sort of like, I'm going to do A, B, and C in the first year, and then in the second year and the third year, and just sticking to this rigid rail system, maybe think more about, here's this universe, or here's this solar system of projects and things that I want to work on. And then there are other little planetoids living in orbit around each other in there. So you can find these kind of ready projects with stakeholders, and if you can do it well, if you can help them, then you've got an ally, then you've got a person on your side. As opposed to just sort of like, hey, I would like to make schedule a meeting with you to tell you how great OER is, and this is why you should use it, right? Why not find something that they're already working on and do a project with them and, approach things that way. So they don't feel like they're being sold something. Instead, they're actually sort of like seeing how it can work in practice. And so I think that is a really good strategy toward identifying stakeholders and developing allies in the stakeholder community.
I'll just add too, Anne asked us this question, and it's that $1 million question. So we work on this all the time in our MHEC OER state action teams. So we work with anyone from a state who comes to the table. If you are not in a MHEC state, you can still contact me and I will help you get connected with a counterpart in one of the other regional compacts. But this is the type of thing we do, and we help each other, and we convene. We have professional development opportunities, scholarship opportunities, all kinds of ways that we're there really to help you make the most of OER on your campus and to connect with the other people on other campuses in other states, wherever, to really help you with that. So please reach out. I'm happy to help with that. Anne also has asked if Molly can talk a little bit more about zero cost in OER.
Sure. So I think if I'm understanding the question right, so we have is it about Z degrees perhaps, or yeah, okay. So I will say, just in collaboration, if you aren't already, connect with an advisor on your campus. That was, I think, one of the biggest wins for me, was finding an advisor who was interested in OER. And because they're the ones constantly helping students navigate degree paths. And so once we started having more and more OER, I started thinking, hey, I think we're getting pretty close to a degree. And so then I was able to sit down with her and look at our course list and compare it to different potential degree paths. And she was able to help me kind of highlight which courses would tip us over the edge. And so then that helped me do some more direct target collaboration and target marketing and network in some departments where I said, hey, we're one course away from a zero textbook degree path. Can we make it happen? And we did. So I would say that is the biggest benefit in navigating those zero textbook degree paths. And with those two, so it's not all OER. Some of those courses just don't use a textbook, or they're using linking to library articles or websites, or they made all their own stuff, or it's like yoga, right? But sometimes when a student has to take 12 credits in whatever, to fulfill their degree path, knowing which courses also just don't have a textbook can be really helpful there as well.
Yeah, and if I could add, yeah, that's actually a really good point about no cost as opposed to this, the openly licensed definition of open educational resources, because you're going to be working with both. And while I try to push sort of Creative Commons licensed materials as much as possible and still extol the benefits of it, there are going to be cases in which, there are either freely available materials that are simply being linked to, or, they're using materials in some way that aren't sort of like fully open licensed for sharing, for remixing, etc. And that's a pragmatic fact of things. And, from the perspective of like student success, like from the student's perspective, like as long as they're still getting that benefit, right, then that can still be a way to grow your program. So instead of, again, sticking to that rail of I will only do things according to this definition, sort of expanding how you're thinking of these kind of projects is beneficial. That's why we have an attribute tagging system that we've implemented that tags all the courses as either no cost or low cost, right? So we originally wanted to have an OER tag, but we had like 4 or 5 tags, and it was getting too hard to be able to keep track of it. And so we eventually just sort of, for expediency's sake, have a no cost and a low-cost tag, one of the two. So if they don't have to buy anything, it's no cost. If it's less than $40, it's a low cost. And then, yeah, we've actually we've been meeting with the executive advising committee this semester a couple times and kind of, talked to them, showed them the student success metrics that we had collected. And yeah, so they've sort of recently, I think it was last week, finally were like, I got CC'd on it, like email to all of the advisors. Here's the tagging system. Here's how to find it. Here's how to use it. Please use it, right? So that was another way to, cultivate an ally, find them, and kind of get them on your side and to work together as opposed to just selling somebody on something. So yeah.
Thank you all. So I'm just going to note that Mary has added some of the links to some of the research reports that we've done pertaining to establishing good practices, consistent practices on campus, whether it's toward well, we have one coming out on course marking in the summer, but right now I think she's posted the one about cost savings calculations. And then someone was asking for my contact information. So Mary put that in there too. You'll see the link on the website. Yeah, I'm very happy to help anyone. So do we have anything else? Yeah, take a look at the MEC website, the OER page. We've got a lot going on there, and it links to work at the other compacts. And we are beginning to build out more of our links to NCOER, which is the National Consortium for OER, which is where all 4 compacts are working together to, again, scale best practices and increase the capacity for all the states to do more OER work. Thank you all so much. I will just remind everyone to please fill out our little survey so that we know how we did and we can do better next time. And thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you too. Take care.
Bye-bye.